Welcome back, everyone. Today I have a review for a figure I am very excited to have obtained. This is Power of the Primes, Throne of the Primes, a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive for this year. And it is a mainly black redeco of the Power of the Primes leader class Optimal Optimus, due out sometime later this year in the States. And it was released to commemorate Optimus's victory as the fan-voted Prime. So we're going to take a look at the box first, which is very impressive in both design and size. See the contents of it, take a look at each side, then bust everything out of there and take a look at this really impressive set. So right from the get-go, you can see it's kind of like a two-sided window here on the front. Let's get a good look at him. There's Optimus sitting in his chair, holding a scepter, crown on his head, or called a chair, a throne. It's got the word Transformers with some vines going across it. This whole jungle motif they have going, sorry, because he is, Beast Wars. There's a Maximal symbol on top, which looks really cool. Got some claw marks, another vine growing across there. Some more vines. Got the 12 prime symbols there, the logo. You got this really, really nice piece of artwork that just takes up the entire back. And it's got Optimus there holding his scepter, looking mighty. It's got 4 Prime Masters powering it up, and got all the remaining Prime Masters floating around. Got the wheel of Prime symbols in the background there, throne in the far back. So this is really cool. It says Scepter of Sparks. That's the name of his weapon. And then on this side, you have the Halo of Primus, showing off the 3 figures that come with this, plus, well, actually the 4th right there in the middle as the Matrix. Brief description here about the Halo of Primus says the Halo of Primus holds the 12 Prime Masters. When the circle is complete, the powers of Primus are united as one, but the power is too great for any mortal, even the chosen Matrix bearer, to wield at once. The Scepter of Sparks was created to hold and combine the powers of the Primes, so that its wielder can carry them forth into battle and bring light to the darkest hour. It's basically the Infinity Gauntlet. I'm pretty convinced that they kind of just lifted that idea off of the Infinity Gauntlet, the Infinity Stones. You have this device, this golden device that allows you to harness all of their powers at once. But it is a really cool notion. And down here, it has each of the Prime Masters that aren't part of this set, just remaining ones with their names, their title there. So that's pretty neat. And bottom of the box, big old Maximal symbol. And for anyone that has followed me for a while, you probably know that I'm a huge fan of Beast Wars. It's probably my favorite series out of the entire franchise. So I was really happy to hear Optimus won the fan poll. I'm sure not everybody was. I'm sure a lot of people had other ideas for who they wanted to win, but after Hasbro went and just completely snubbed Beast Wars on its 20th anniversary, I feel like this is a good compensation. So now let's get to the fun part. We're going to go ahead and crack him out of the box, along with all of his accessories, and just take a look at how nice this whole package is. And I'm even going to bust out my original Optimal Optimus to compare him to. I kind of hoped the standard retail version of this guy in his original colors would have come out first, because I would have liked to compare that one to the original toy more, but work with what they give us. And without further ado, let's take a look at what's inside. All right, so here are the contents of the box. You have the big bot himself, Optimus. You have the Scepter of the Sparks, a crown, 4 Prime Masters, his card, and this very big instruction book. So, we're going to take turns looking at all of them. We'll look at the instructions first. This is the front of it, and one thing that might stick out to you is that this is in full color. Even though it's printed on the same flat paper as normal retail instructions, they've actually gone and fully colorized it. It's not just red or purple, or it's everything. Which, you're gonna see, all the parts of this in a second. Just looks amazing. Got Optimus wielding his scepter with the Prime Masters in it. Throne of the Primes, because that's the actual name of this product. And you just open this bad boy up. And it really is in full color all the way through. and it just looks fantastic. Now here's the back. This is really neat. It's got the halo of Primus there. We've got all 12 of the main Prime symbols, along with their names, descriptions. And just more steps on the back here. Shows off the Prime Masters themselves. Accessory compatibility with the Scepter. And here's Optimus's character card. And you can see it's a smaller version of the artwork on the back of the box. Calls him Optimus, referring to his larger form. And this card is unique in that it has a completely different symbol on it from all the other ones. Because it doesn't have any symbols of the 12 primes, this is actually the symbol of the 13th prime. So this is the only card that actually has that on there. And it's got his name, Optimus, and it's got an extra long description here instead of the usual, like, you know, oh, combines with others for blah, 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 whatever. All right, the Matrix of Leadership chooses Optimus Primal to be its next bearer. With the increased strength and wisdom bestowed upon him by the Matrix, Optimus Primal evolves to Optimal Optimus and leads Cybertron into a new era. So, a lot weightier than the normal cards, you know. It's pretty much his, was like his tech spec bio, just right there on the card. Which is kind of a lost art these days. And here's Optimus in his completed gorilla form. The main body of this, the gorilla, is actually considered Optimus's evolution armor that all of the leader class figures for this line have. And then this whole cannon array here on the back is Optimus Primal himself. This form is a pretty faithful recreation of the original gorilla form. It's got obvious differences. It's smaller, it's got different proportions and all that. Some tweaked design cues. But overall, it's pretty recognizable as Optimal Optimus's beast form. You can see that he's done up in colors meant to evoke the original body of Optimus from the show, which is why he's mainly this really dark gray, almost black, with some lighter gray and stuff. So it actually ends up looking a lot like his more organic gorilla form than his Optimal Optimus one. Speaking of the optimal gorilla form, here it is. This is the original Beast Wars Optimal Optimus toy in his standard gorilla configuration there. And you can see that these are designed very similarly. I mean, all of the major cues are there. Like I said, portions are a bit different. You know, his arms are a good bit shorter than his. He has kind of just a serious face, which is a lot more reminiscent of how it actually looked in the TV show. Whereas this has your typical just Beast Wars snarling teeth look. I don't know if there's one that's really better. I mean, I definitely, having grown up with Beast Wars, always digged, you know, just the over the top, tooth for days kind of motif they had. But if you want something that might resemble, you know, a little more what he looked like in the show, this is also good. One major difference in form between these two is whereas this Optimus's legs are contracted in a way, they're shortened from their normal robot mode configuration. The original toy didn't do that. This is just the standard length of the legs. It doesn't retract or stretch or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty spot on recreation. You know, they've taken some artistic liberties. They didn't want it to be the exact same toy. But, you know, when you look at these two, you can tell that they're the same character. Here's Primal's normal vehicle mode. And this is definitely the weakest mode of the bunch. It's meant to be a cargo ship. So, Optimus Primal, the idea of this is that this is a Cybertronian form, so like pre-Beast Wars form for him. So, they're saying that his normal vehicle mode is like some sort of cargo ship. And you can see pretty easily that it's just a folded up Optimus Primal. It's got the Optimus Optimus head very clearly visible there. And you got this cockpit bit, which has a very clearly visible matrix in it. And there's nothing really else to it. It's just kind of an ugly brick of a thing. So, nothing too impressive there. And is a little contradictory to the original Cybertronian alt mode given Optimus, which was like a really heavy race car looking vehicle. So, not the best thing out there, but what it lacks in its power to stand alone makes up for with interactivity. I'll show you what I mean. So that crummy cargo ship can turn into a hoverboard for the gorilla armor. So it goes from being a pointless brick to a really awesome accessory for his larger body. And anyone familiar with Beast Wars, familiar with Optimus Primal, will immediately recognize the homage here that they're doing. It's meant to evoke his transmetal form, which, had a gorilla alternate mode, but also had the ability to produce a hoverboard for him to fly around on. So this is a really neat nod to that and makes the smaller robots alternate mode a lot more interesting. You can see here that the cannons that were previously stored on the gorilla's back via this piece are now stored on the sides of his legs. Some pretty clean looking storage there. They kind of blend in nicely. And this is really fun. This is definitely one of my favorite modes altogether, because who doesn't love a giant robot gorilla flying around on a hoverboard, right? All right, we've got one more alt mode to look at before we start looking at the robot modes. So this fun little number is Optimus Air Guardian mode, which is a callback to the mode that he had in the original toy in Beast Wars. And it's his flying mode. And it's silly looking, it's a plane with arms and hands and feet. It's not always Optimal Optimus' strongest mode. But the fact that they made sure to include this in here and have this callback to the original toy is really neat. And, for what it is, it looks good. It looks very faithful to the original. So you got the cannons mounted up here, up top now. And yeah, it doesn't do much, it doesn't really move. It just looks like a cross between Superman and a jet flying around. And here's a comparison to the original version. And you can see, again, it's pretty dead on. Some minor differences. One thing I actually consider an improvement is, unlike the original toy, there's no gorilla head hanging out underneath there. Gorilla head's properly stored away in this version, so kind of comes out a little better. So again, very close approximation to the original design there. You can definitely tell that it is, what it's supposed to be. And, with this included, it allows the new Optimal Optimus toy to do almost everything the original one could, and then some. The only exception is that the original toy also has a land vehicle mode, complete with some flip down wheels here and a larger wheel that flips out from inside the chest there. This toy does not have that. It doesn't have wheels, those leg panels don't flip down, so it is completely lacking that mode. Overall, small price to pay for all the extra interactivity you get, with having an additional vehicle mode separate from the main body, having an additional robot mode. And honestly, nobody's a very big fan of really this Air Guardian or the ground vehicle modes anyway, so, not a huge loss. I feel like it's an overall win. Though I will say, if you are really determined to have that vehicle mode, there is a third-party add-on set coming for this guy, and I don't personally buy third-party stuff, but if you do want a more authentic Optimal Optimus, they do make it, and it gives additional and replacement parts to give him that fourth mode there, vehicle mode, and it looks pretty good overall. And they also integrate quite well with the other forms. And additionally, they give the toy new guns based off of this one here, right there, that came with the original toy. You get two of guns that look just like this one, so pretty cool. Again, I won't buy it personally, but I can't say I'd fault anyone if they wanted to pick it up. Now we come to the more interesting stuff. This is Optimus Primal's smaller robot form, and it is very much based off his original gorilla form from the TV show and the Ultra Class toy there. It's just got a more mechanical feel to it, you know, lacks fur details and stuff like that. And it looks very good. It's about deluxe size, like most of the core robots of the leader toys on this line. It's got an excellent face sculpt. Looks just like Optimus Primal. It's got the chest details in visual toys. It's got shoulder pads. Legs look pretty much the same. He's got a big Maximal sticker there on his shoulder, which looks pretty decent. Got a very large backpack, just very long. Greatly inhibits his leg articulation there. But, yeah, not really into getting around it. They needed somewhere to put all this stuff. And I didn't mention it before, but the stickers on this actually look really nice. They're well applied. Give it kind of a retro toy feel. It's pretty good. Now, there were some early photos of this toy, early stock photos, that his little chin guard area here wasn't painted. It was just left blue and looked really awful. And I'm glad that that was like a fluke and that's not how the toy actually came out, because I would have been really disappointed. In this form, Optimus can wield his two cannon type weapons, these here, and he can either hold them like, you know, cannons or guns, if you want to do it that way. It's an option. Or the way that's shown more frequently is that he can hold them like they're some sort of clubs or batons. And that's pretty much how you see him in all of his stock photos and everything, wielding these. And it's pretty widely believed that these are supposed to be a nod to the two swords that Primal wielded in his original gorilla form. And it kind of evokes it. I mean, they don't look like the swords at all, but would put him in, you know, pretty much the same battle poses and everything, because he's just wielding two melee weapons. But overall, this is a fun little robot mode. I feel he kind of shares the honor with Orion Pax for having an absolutely hideous alt mode, but having just a perfectly nice looking robot mode. So yeah, definitely a big fan of this guy. And now finally we have the complete optimal Optimus robot. And this thing does all sorts of crazy things to my brain, because it is shaped like Optimal Optimus, but it's colored like regular Optimus Primal, and my mind is just doing somersaults trying to figure out what it's looking at. But this is it's a very good looking robot mode. You know, I mean, I've always loved the Optimal Optimus design, and then having these really sleek colors on it just creates something that's really nice to look at. Here, a lot of his sticker detail shines. You can see little Maximal symbols right here. Got these little tech details here. He's got little triangles on his kneecaps, and unfortunately this one was applied very crooked. It's the only sticker on here that I'm like displeased with. All the rest of them are more than good enough, but that one is going to bug me forever. His matrix there is clearly on display, and it's having it there is a callback to the episode where Optimus first takes on his optimal form by storing the spark of Optimus Prime within himself. And the spark and its holder were actually made to be shaped like the Matrix of Leadership. So having an object that looks like the Matrix go into that little cockpit / chest compartment is just a really awesome nod. Then, you know, of course, with the whole compatibility thing, you can replace the Matrix core with Prime Master and Enigma. Putting the 13th Prime in there would probably look pretty cool. Huh? This form's weakest bit is definitely the backside, because again, instead of having like a nice clean turret or something, you just have folded up Primal, which is a definite shame. You can see that his little blast shield panel thingies have been moved, you know, from his forearm to his shoulders to make him look a little more imposing. That's actually optional, and just as it was with the original toy, and even within the Beast Wars cartoon, those blast shields did kind of randomly switch between his shoulders and his forearms. So it's up to you. It's up to personal preference. One thing that's really cool about this toy is that it has a feature that was present in the show but not in the original toy itself. And that is the ability to have his cockpit section here slide down and have his cannons deploy kind of right from his like top of his chest. So basically you just switch this, bring it down. This is actually closer to where it sits in the original toy. Take the cannons off of his leg storage here and plug them into these 5mm holes. And that's his kind of robot attack mode from the show and from the original toy. So if you want to make this guy really accurate to your old school toy, that's the way you do it right there. And yeah, he looks just downright cool like this. See, his head is articulated, which is always nice. He's got, hinges, swivels on his biceps. The fingers work just like they do on the original toy, where you have like a single point of articulation for all the main fingers, one for the thumbs. Those are the thumbs to switch around to go into different modes there. One big advantage he has over the original is he has ankle tilt and ankle pivot. So, go front and back, but it can also tilt. So he's very posable. And none of his joints are tightly ratcheted like the original toys were. They're all kind of just friction joints, which makes them a little easier to pose. Might cause some looseness in some copies, especially if they start recoloring this mold a lot. Maybe we'll get a Primal Prime out of it. Well, maybe. Hasbro. But overall, this is a very solid looking form. It's absolutely excellent. I'm going to have to hold the camera for this one because my guy's so tall over here. But yeah, here's the original one in his robot mode. You can see that despite having the same overall design, they're starting to look pretty different, pretty divergent now. The proportions are very different. Whereas the original toy has these really long arms and kind of short legs, the other one is a little more normally proportioned for a humanoid robot. The head design on this is quite a bit slimmer than that one there. It's been kind of streamlined. The blast shields are much, much larger on this version here. And one major difference between those blast shields is that on this toy, they're made up of 3 spring-loaded pieces, different panels, which do make them a lot harder to put on, but they're part of this kind of blast off gimmick. There was a switch here that when you flick, pushed it up, the blast shields would go flying off of here, simulate some sort of like battle damage or something. His are just one solid piece. So while not nearly as interactive, they're a lot easier to switch around. The new version does lack any sort of electronics. The old one did have, light up abilities, also had a mechanic to fire these missiles out of his cannons. Also had 2 extra missiles there, which is good because they're clear and probably very prone to getting lost. I already pointed out the gun that this guy's rocking, that this one doesn't have. However, the instructions do show you a way to kind of emulate the gun, and I'll show you that in a second. It honestly looks pretty terrible, so I'll never use that configuration, but you'll get a chance to see it. All right, that configuration I mentioned involves you plugging the 2 guns together, or kind of a larger rifle type weapon, and you have him hold it in his hand. However, the way you hold it is by plugging it into this hole in his thumb. So you just get it in there, and that's how he holds it. It's very unnatural looking. He's pretty much just bouncing it on his thumb. Maybe have him close it up a little bit, but then the gun's facing a weird angle, and it doesn't look good. This had to be an afterthought, and it kind of shows. So, like I said, you'll never see me using this configuration. I'll probably either just have him stored on his legs or coming out of his chest there. But it's up to you. If you want to go with the bigger rifle, you can. A common theme of the leader class toys is having 2 small weapons combined to a bigger one, so knock yourself out if that's what you want to do. Here are the 4 Prime Masters that come with this set. And out of these four, you have Amalgamus Prime, 13th Prime, Prima Prime, which is the trademark friendly name for this, but I refuse to call it that, just Prima. And then you have Nexus Prime here, one of my faves. So 3 of the 4 of these are only available in this set. There is a differently colored Prima coming with the upcoming Punch and Counterpunch toy. So if you want to get Prima and don't want to buy this, $70 set, you can get them there. But they all look really good. The 3 like normal Prime guys are done up in this really nice, like sparkly, pearly, shiny plastic, which hopefully doesn't end up, dying on me down the road. Here's Amalgamus Prime symbol, along with Nexus Primes right there. There we go. And Primus, looking very nice with the silver. And lastly, we have the symbol of the 13th Prime, which is just this kind of, I guess it's meant to be the Matrix. It definitely looks like the Matrix, and he is supposed to represent the Matrix bearer. Doesn't have a distinct identity, but one interesting little tidbit is that he is designed and painted in a way to resemble the original Matrix bearer from the 1980s G1 cartoon, like the very first Prime. So that was a neat touch. I don't know if he's actually supposed to be some sort of embodiment to that guy, but it is a cool callback either way. His colors are a bit uglier than the rest, but they do stand out more. All that bright yellow and the silver and everything, so pretty cool. Now going back to the Scepter of Primes. It's this pretty big accessory that's unique to this box set. It's designed to actually resemble the mace weapons of Primal's original transmetal form. So nice little nod there. And this is actually designed to hold 4 Prime Masters. This little piece right here slides down like so, and you see the little pegs there. They're meant to hold Prime Master feet. So by default, it holds the 4 Prime Masters from the set. And it's kind of a pain to get them in there. I find the easiest way is to start them in a sitting position, plug their feet in. Fit just fine on this one. So must be a slight difference in their dimensions there. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out, may be hard to see, but he's missing some paint on his helmet. You can see it's been kind of scratched off. And that's because the paint is in here. So this is the slot that he was stored in inside the box, and his paint on his helmet must have not been completely dry when they crammed him in there, because it became stuck to the mace and some of it came off, unfortunately. So something to watch out for on your toys. Yeah, just kind of stick them all up in there. And there you have a fully powered up Scepter of Sparks. So looks pretty cool. It allows it to carry out its whole Infinity Gauntlet-esque purpose of harnessing multiple Prime Masters at once. Now, the flavor text talked about harnessing all 13. Now, obviously this only holds 4, so oh well. But it is a neat feature. It's good, interactivity that they built into this. The only kind of downside is that their symbols are upside down this way. So it looks a little odd. Maybe they should have designed it to go the other way or something so the symbols were facing the right way, but minor grievance. All right, the scepter can be held in either of Optimus's hands here. By default, it goes in his right hand. And one particular side of the scepter, you can see here, has kind of these notches, these nubs. They're actually meant to plug into the holes here in his palm. Pretty tight, and they don't stay in very well, so gotta warn it. Say it fits with about the same snugness of like a Masterpiece toy. If you've seen their like standard connector they use, it's pretty close to that, which means it has a tendency to pop out at the slightest provocation. In fact, it's kind of fighting with me right now. But all right, carefully close the hand, and there you go. He's rocking his scepter, looking very cool doing it. But the look is not yet complete because we have to attach his crown. You can see this is very well sculpted, very well detailed. It's got these different kind of colors on the front. It's got a painted maximal symbol that just looks really sharp. And it just plugs directly onto Optimus's head there. And that completes this whole king motif. And it's just got him looking very cool and will help set him apart even more from the standard retail version. So, you know, consider it maybe an upgraded form. So you can still get the standard one, get this one. This might be him, you know, when he just harnesses the full power of the Prime Masters or something. And before we end this video, we have to take a look at one final piece of this package. Here is the actual throne of the Primes. It's been removed from the box, and you have the main throne portion here. You have this plastic halo of Primus in the background, and then you have the surrounding area, which is like, I'm guessing Eucharis, because he's supposedly the king of Eucharis, Jungle Planet, but that kind of got lost and never made its way into fiction. But tons of detail here. There's battle damage all over. There's vines all over the thing. And along the sides here, you can actually see the faces of the competitors from the fan vote for choosing the next Prime. So all the losers from that competition. The Halo of Primus here actually turns on like a ratcheted motion. It doesn't just spin freely. You can see I've already stuck the standard Prime Masters in here. And each one has a symbol so you know where to put them. And then, you know, you can always put our remaining 3 in here if you want to. Unfortunately, there's not a space for the 13th. So he's kind of on his own. He'll just have to stay in the scepter, I guess. Now, I will say, in order to get this thing out and remove Optimus from it and remove like extra like plastic bits that are meant to hold him in, you have to fully disassemble all of this. That involves peeling off like every piece of tape holding it together to where you're just removing bits and completely unfolding it. You have to go all the way, everything taken apart to get that last piece of plastic off. So it's going to take a bit. You know, I spent a good hour opening this after the, you know, opening part of this video. But in the end, it's worth it because the throne looks fantastic. The background, I mean, I think is optional. It's not really technically part of the throne, but I'm keeping it there because it just makes it look so much cooler. And, you know, this is very reminiscent of the backdrops that are used for the Studio series. In fact, they may have gotten the idea to do this from that. However, this is kind of like those backdrops on steroids. I mean, it's got moving parts. It's not just a flat backdrop. It's 3-dimensional. It's so cool. And, you know, it just makes a perfect display piece for this guy. So, what's a throne without its king? You get Primal up there. Set him down. Get him looking all cool. So, we're just going to put him like a sitting position. Oh, don't drop your scepter. Oh, yeah. To get him to really sit on this, you kind of have to fold in his leg fins there. Kind of forgot about that. Otherwise, they push him too far away from the seat. There you go. It's a little better. Oh, sit up more, guy. Sit up more. There we go. All right. And then there you have it. There's Optimus sitting proudly upon his throne, waving his scepter around. Got the other Prime Masters kind of captured in his halo there. And this is just the complete set. Everything you're getting for $70 plus tax, shipping, all that fun stuff. Now this guy was an absolute nightmare to obtain. You had to either get him at San Diego Comic-Con when it was going on, or during the all of 10 minutes it was initially available on the Hasbro Toy Shop, which I missed out on because, you know, I blinked basically. And then there was a a short restock that lasts a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but not very long. And finally, I managed to grab him through that. And since I live pretty close to where they ship their stuff out, I was able to get it like the next day. So awesome. Happy kid. I will say, I hate how much it costs. $70 isn't expensive in the realm of Transformers exclusives, but it's pretty expensive in the realm of Comic-Con exclusives for Transformers. When you consider that the previous year's big figure was the skateboarding Optimus Prime, it was also a leader class figure, also had newly molded accessories and all of that. It was $50. It's only $5 more than retail. For some reason, they decided this one had to be $70, which I just... The price difference, I mean, it's only a year apart. You can't blame inflation for such a price hike. Really is just, I think, greed on somebody's part. But I knew I wanted this badly enough to pay that, hefty price tag for it. It's just so cool. And again, I love Beast Wars, so any chance I get to kind of bathe in my love of Beast Wars, I got to do it. And this guy's he's so cool. He's an interesting take on the toy. He covers every iteration of the character from Beast Wars, unless you count the bat form, but that wasn't in the show. So the throne is an awesome backdrop. It's a shame it's made of cardboard, because I imagine that eventually it'll buckle from under the weight of the toy as it just gets older and deteriorates. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll last a lot longer than I think it will. We'll see. Also, it is kind of a $70 bribe to obtain the remaining 3 or 4 Prime Masters that never made it to retail. I'm still convinced that some, if not all of these guys were meant to be released with a standard release with Pretender shells and everything, especially with the proposed Headmaster armor from the Grand Maximus that looked exactly like Wave Rider. You just get a strong feeling something was planned for these guys, and then they ran out of money or time and just kind of threw it into this box set. So this is your only way to complete the actual collection of the 13 Prime Masters. So something to keep in mind, I suppose. But yeah, those are my thoughts on this pretty big Comic-Con set. But what I really want to know is, what did you all think of it? Did you like, what you saw in this review? Did it make you want to pick this up? It is still possible to get one. I mean, you could either, one, pay through the nose on the secondary market, or there will be a Japanese release of this, so you can pre-order it from a bunch of websites. And honestly, it's going for about $90 right now, but that's not too far off from the cost of this thing when you factored in the shipping costs and the tax that Hasbro Toy Shop charged. So you can still get it. You may have to wait a few months. I think it's supposed to come out like January. But yeah, do you think this guy's worth the price? Would you pick him up as well as the regular version? Do you think he's better than the regular version? Worse? Would you have liked to see anything different, come out of this toy? Just, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. But now that I've said everything I have to say, and, kind of put it out there that I'm hoping this toy sparks some conversation, we've reached the end of the review. So without chatting up anymore, I'm just going to cut it off, and I will see you all next time.